Hi, my name is Matthew Price. I made top 4 at the Card Merchant 10k post Cyberstorm Access tournament over the weekend, and I decided to play Mathmech for it. Thanks so much to YuGiOh for letting me share this on the channel. Just a few quick shout outs before I begin. Shout out to Ninja K Cards on Card Market. We've got Owen, David and Jara checking in with me in between rounds. Great moral support. All the Birmingham lads, you know who you all are, for helping me with a lot of the testing. And shout out to the store card merchants. Honestly, one of the best dueling book tournaments that I've played in a long time. But anyway, let's get straight in. So it's going to look relatively standard as far as most of the Mathmech cards go, with a couple of new additions that you probably see on the screen already. We'll start off with some of the newer cards. The Firewall Defensor is the main one that we get for this set. It is an incredibly powerful card, especially into a format of a lot of hand traps. What it will do is, if it is used to link summon a Sideburst monster, I can summon a differently named Firewall monster from the deck. There is one that already exists in Guardian, which is an additional 2 bodies, but there is also a new one in Phantom, which I will get to in a moment. The additional normal summon of Defensor means that you're not as reliant in opening your power cards like your Circular or your Diameter, and as well as that, Defensor on its own does exactly the same as Circular. So that added consistency helps a ton with this deck, especially when you're drawing awkward hands. With the Phantom, the reason that this is in here is if you already open Circular Access alongside your Defensor, I wanted the combo to be able to go a little bit further, and in doing so you can actually summon the Phantom off of Defensor, which when it is link summoned with into a Cyburst, you can add a Cynet spell or trap, which gets you the counter trap in Conflict. Conflict was an amazing card. It came up a couple of times over the weekend, but yeah, the additional, just having the options is really nice. As far as the Mathmech cards themselves go, there's a couple of out of the ordinaries. For the most part, it is relatively standard. The 3 Circular and Diameter, you really want to see those. And then there is one of Sigma, Subtraction and Addition. I never found myself missing a second copy of any of them, especially because there's no Pot of Desires in the deck anymore, like there used to be before. The only thing that caught me in one of my top cut rounds was having a second Sigma, because I got one banished off of a Rise Heart Banistery. But that, I suppose, at the end of the day, it's just variance. I would consider playing a second in the future, but that is just for testing. The other Mathmech name we have is Nabla, and this is not one that people tend to play normally, because its utility isn't quite needed in the normal Mathmech strategy. The reason that this is in here is because if you were to start with the 1-card Defensor combo, it does get you to Circular, but it will only get you to 2 Mathmech names rather than 3 for Factorial. So what you would instead do is Circular send Nabla to the graveyard instead of Sigma, like you would be used to. Then Alan Bershan can summon it from the graveyard, and then Nabla can cycle into your 3rd name, which is usually a Diameter. On its own as well, it is just another copy of Circular at the absolute worst if you have an extender. It is just a relatively good card to have as well. The one equation, the one super pack, this deck would not be good, I would say, without this trap. Every time Super Factorial resolved, I generally won those games. Having a Revolt-like card that is Trishula with a negate is pretty strong, I would say. Moving on to the non-engine, so 3 Cynet Mining, more consistency for Defensor and Circular, obviously your 2 best cards. And 3 Small World. The Small World bridges in this deck are absolutely incredible. Almost any card can access almost any card in your deck, with the addition of having some oddly leveled monsters with 0 attack that are light, and other attributes like that are very useful. I'll get to some of the cooler small word British when we talk about Santa Claus over here, but that is a different story. For the hand traps, impermanence, this is here for some of the problematic monsters that the deck can't deal with. This deck's Kashtira matchup is not the best. If you are going second, you cannot use CYAC Mining or Circular under a Rise Heart, so I wanted a lot of my non-engine to be built around stopping them getting to that, whilst also trying to respect a lot of other decks in the room. If I do have an impermanence, I will hold it for the Arise turn, unless they're trying to full zone lock me. Ash is good into a very generic field. I played maybe 6 or 7 different decks across the tournament. Obviously, having something as generic as Ash Blossom is something that's very nice to have. Especially into the more roguer matchups. For example, I played against an Eldritch Stun player. Actually, in the Red Eyes fusion was very key there. But yeah, would not cut it. The 2 newer additions for the format, something that you wouldn't really be playing in the main deck otherwise, would be Ghost Ogre and Droll and Lockbird. The Droll is a very good meta call. It completely neuters a lot of the new decks as well as some of the existing ones. Droll completely destroys Super Heavy Samurai, which I was a little bit afraid of because I haven't tested against it as much as I'd probably have liked. And it's also surprisingly good into the Pearly matchup. If Pearly can establish a Noir, it is very difficult for you to be able to play because you are a board based deck at the end of the day. So Droll is there to stop that. It also is just generically good into the rest of the field. It's okay into Kashtira. You make them commit their whole hand if they have a lot of extenders, which is fine. And it's also surprisingly good into the mirror match as well. Would not cut Droll for the world. Ghost Ogre was... I was back and forth on Ogre. Yes, it's very good into Super Heavy and Pearly, which again I was a little bit afraid of. But it does have a couple of downsides on its matchup field. Into the mirror match, it's not good. Into Kashtira, it's okay, but game 1 it can be a little bit lackluster if they have things like Shifter, or if they don't rely on Birth Effect to play. But I think the benefit of having Ghost Ogre over not having it made it worth playing into the rest of the field that wasn't Kashtira. I don't regret playing it. It was a very good card to have. Moving forward, I'll probably keep it in the deck. And then the last card was Santa Claus. A lot of Mathmech deck playing Kaijus in this slot. You can play either or. I think the Kaiju definitely has its benefits in its stat line. The only reason that it is Santa Claus instead here is because of the small world bridges and how amazing it is with that. Santa Claus shares the same attack stat with Defensor, which is incredible. It means even cards like Parallel Exceed can become Santa Claus in a pinch. So yeah, Santa Claus was absolutely amazing the entire weekend. I wouldn't change that much going forward to the main deck. Maybe the Conflict can be a different Signet spell as an extender. The Negate itself didn't come up as much as I thought it would in testing. So maybe the new Signet rollback spell or something similar like that would be a little more useful. Moving on to the extra deck, a lot of this is what you're going to see in normal Mathmech builds, bar a few surprises later on. Child Inversion, one ablation. I do like the idea of double ablation. Fitting it in is a little bit difficult, but I think I will try and fit it in moving forward. It is an absolutely amazing card. If I have the facilities to on the first turn, I will make a ablation just to rip a card out of the hand. Then playing with 4 or 5 cards compared to 6 is a massive difference into a Factorial. That being said, I would like to maybe consider bumping Factorial to 2 with the depletion, mainly for the fact that Droll is in the format. If I can draw Factorial and get 3 names before Droll, even better. But Factorial is just an absolutely amazing card in and of itself. The Link monsters. Link Grebo is the Link one Cyberse of all time. Why it negates trap cards, I have no idea, but I will not argue with it whatsoever. Link Spider with the G Golem Crystal Heart. This is your way to still OTK through a Nibiru. As crazy as that sounds. So long as you skip Transcode Talker on your way to your update jammer and your access code. If you get Nibiru'd and have a single extender, you can use it for Link Spider into Crystal Heart to summon back Link Spider. That makes transcode to resurrect the update jammer that you used previously into the other access code and still kill them, which is absolutely amazing. It came up more times than I can count, especially because hand traps are so much more popular at the moment. The rest of it is for the normal first turn combo, so you have Wicked and Heat Soul, as well as your Splash Mage, which is a very good extender. The other cards in the extra deck, you'd probably be used to seeing something like Salamangreat Almirage in this spot. With the addition of the Firewall Defense, I thought it only appropriate to play the Firewall Dragon. Because Defensor opens so many more opportunities for extension. Being able to end on an actual monster interruption, along with a Factorial, is absolutely incredible. Vanilla Firewall Dragon actually really overperformed. Bounce this format against anything that's not Cached Era is almost even turn ending sometimes. So yeah, I have no complaints about Firewall. It can even bounce back hand traps that you've used on turn 0 as well. I added a Droll and Lockbird back in the end phase, passing over to a super heavy player, and he was like, yeah, that's enough for me. So yeah, I would continue playing this card going forward. And the last card was the new Singularity. It's Firewall Dragon, but a little bit more. It can bounce cards your opponent controls or in their grave up to the number of different monster card types in the graveyard. This deck only plays one, which is Xyz, but one bounce a turn is more than enough. It does also make itself bigger, it has a resurrection effect. It's just a very good card in general. Singularity was in here mainly for the grindier matchups, to where I'd need the reborn each turn, the bounce each turn, and kind of swing tempo from there. What I would say moving forward, I may not keep playing it. It came up once in the entire event because of its base stat line being 35 into skill drain. I had a dragon player that was playing skill drain, which, you know, is completely fair enough. It helped me get over a defense position Lebellion. And I just won from having the bigger beat stick from there. Moving forward, it will probably become the second Laplacian with a second Super Factorial. And playing a more control-y route. If I can fit more hand traps in, I'll try and do that. But yeah, the extra deck was amazing. Every card had its purpose. The side deck was the harder choices for me to make. I knew I definitely wanted to play Psyframe Gear Gamma. I'd say Gamma is probably the hand trap of the format next to Droll. It completely overperformed. Every time I went second, it went in. It did going first into Cached Era for Dimension Shifter. This deck does fold completely to a Shifter-like effect, so we have to respect that. The spells we have in here, Dark Roller was the one that I had the most debate about with some of the other guys. It's, in theory, it's absolutely amazing. The only concern that I had when playing it was, well, my deck wants to kill you on turn 2, or you will very likely out-resource me. In testing, I figured out that is actually not the case. If you can crack or cripple their board and end on a Factorial somewhere along the line, in a simplified game state, Factorial just wins every game. So I found myself boarding in Dark Ruler into things like Super Heavy, Dragon Link, and it just completely overperformed. The Cosmic Cyclones were there to respect the Runic deck mainly. Runic Fountain is a massive problem. If they start banishing your 1/0s off the top of your deck, your Small World becomes a little bit worse, your Circular becomes a little bit worse. As well as that, they can out-advantage you very easily. And against that matchup, you just have to end the game very quickly. Same goes with the Lightning Storm. It's to respect Runic, but also Labyrinth. All 5 of those cards would come into both matchups, just to cover the back row removal, because you have to respect it. You don't want to get caught off guard. And in fairness, I did play a couple of back row decks. I actually dodged every Runic and Labyrinth player in the room somehow, but it's better to be caught prepared than not. Anti-Spell was the going first card of choice. This was Judgment for a time. It was Rivalry of the Warlords. Rivalry was, I'd say, the better choice for the current format, but for post Cyberstorm I went with Anti-Spell. There are a lot more spell cards and power spells that enter the game when Cyberstorm releases. Dark Ruler becomes a lot better, as well as things like talents, because of the massive amount of hand traps that come up. It was a bit of a shout for people to start playing those spells already, so I thought Anti-Spell was a good pick. And every time I had it, it was, they have a grip of even 2, maybe 3 spells, and it just completely cripples them. It helps against a lot of the blowouty kind of spells as well, like Called by the Grave and Talents and Thrust and all of those cards. So yeah, do not regret playing Anti-Spell once. Yeah, that's the list. If anyone is interested in some of the combos with the Firewall cards, if you pop it down in the comments, I'll be happy to answer any questions. But once again, yeah, thanks for YuGiOh for having me on.